I think it's safe to say, after everything we've endured this offseason, after the Wednesday show we did with Jeff Baker, which was a great episode and a great interview, but it was not the most upbeat interview for anybody that listened. I think you'd agree. I think you and I would sit here and agree. So what do we say today? Well, there's not a lot of Mariners news right now. People are kind of down in the dumps on this Mariners offseason. What can we do? Let's have a fun episode, man. And let's do something fun. Let's talk about something engaging. Let's get people upbeat. Along with, personally, I just need it at this point. I can't do any more talk about the RSNs. I can't do any more talk about Root Sports. I can't do any more talk about payroll. It's driving me nuts. So we said, let's put together an actual fun episode for this show and have a blast doing it. So that's what we did, I think.
And I'll say there's nothing really more engaging than ranking. Literally, us putting together these rankings got us engaged in it, which is really good. So the premise of this is we're taking Julio Rodriguez, and Lyle and I are each giving our take of why he would rank where he does amongst the stars in Major League Baseball. It is a very real possibility that sometime in his career, Julio Rodriguez is number 2 in Major League Baseball, right behind Shohei Ohtani. However, I think you and I will very clearly agree here early. He is not number 2 in Major League Baseball, which makes it actually quite more fun to pick out where is Julio among his peers in Major League Baseball after year 2.
And TJ and I are going to differ on this, I'm sure. So we each made some tiers with some lists, and then we're going to get into it. So we're going to talk about the tiers. We made 3 different tiers. And then at the end of the segment, we're each going to rank where we'd put him among all of baseball. So here are the 3 tiers we kind of assessed. Our first one is guys that are definitively ahead of Julio. The second tier will be players that you can argue to put Julio over, but certainly would not be unanimous. And then the third tier is players in his range that you would rank him over. So I think we agreed on the first 5 in the tier of guys definitively ahead of him. Because here's where as far as I know, you and I have the same list. And those 5 are, in some order or another, Shohei Ohtani, I think we both agree he's at 1. Mm-hmm. Ronald Acuna, Mookie Betts, Aaron Judge, Freddie Freeman. Those are the 5. Those are the 5 guys in baseball that say, you know what? As amazing as Julio is, I do not think there's an argument for him to be above any of those 5 players.
I agree. I have one more player in that tier, and I put, after his season in 2023, Corey Seager earns a spot in there. I think I think he clearly made a point that when he is healthy, he is clearly better than what Julio Rodriguez is right now.
Okay, so we're splitting hairs on this because I had Seager as the first guy in the next category. I said, look, if you really wanted to present an argument for why Julio is a better player than Corey Seager, and I know what Corey did this past year was unbelievable, which would have resulted in an MVP had it not been for maybe the greatest player to ever live, taking it instead of him. So I had Seager at 6. I put him in the category of if you really work for it, if you really string together numbers off Savant, Fangraphs, Reference, eye test, leadership, whatever you want to use. Maybe there is something there to say Julio could be put above Corey Seager. I would not rank Julio above Seager at this point, so I put Seager at 6. So pretty much, I'd say we're in the same tier on that range. Now, is there much more to dive in on with those guys? I think that's pretty set in stone, right?
I think the argument's pretty much right yourself. Hey, if you want to make an argument that Julio is better than any one of those guys, credit to you. There's just, I don't see much point. I don't know what data points you're going to be pointing to. For as great as Julio is, I think it's pretty clear cut those guys are better. I mean, it's honestly not very close. But the next tier, as you said, close, but not close enough. I'll put it that way. That's a better way to frame it.
Right. And I will say before we get to our next tier, our listeners are awesome and people are engaged. So if you have an argument for why Julio is better than any of those guys, please tell us in the YouTube comments. Please tell us on Instagram or on Twitter, whether it's in our replies, whether you DM us. Send us the arguments. If you've got an argument for one of those guys being behind Julio, tell us. Now, the second tier here, again, I'll reread it. Players that you can argue to put Julio over, but certainly won't be unanimous. That's the second tier. I think the two of us are going to differ a little bit on who's in this tier of players. I'll let you go first.
So at the top, I mean, guys that, again, it really depends on the person. Mike Trout, Yordan Alvarez, Jose Altuve. I have Juan Soto in this tier. I have Trey Turner in this tier. I have Matt Olson in this tier. I have Marcus Semien, Jose Ramirez, Francisco Lindor, and Fernando Tatis Jr. Or any of those really jump out to you?
So here's my tier. Again, I said I had Corey Seager in this tier, which I do. I have Juan Soto, Yordan Alvarez, Matt Olson, Mike Trout, Francisco Lindor, Jose Altuve. After Seager, at least for now, not in any real particular order. I guess maybe Trout's 7. After that, I guess you can argue however you want. There are a couple that you named in there that stand out to me, and I guess that being one, Trey Turner, because I think you and I are going to measure this ranking a little bit differently, which you're taking clearly Trey's track record much more into account, because Trey Turner did not have a very good year for the most part of 2023. Even though he turned it around toward the end, he really struggled for at least half the year, and as a result didn't have as big of a season. Jose Ramirez was close. I guess I put him slightly in the third tier. Again, he had a good year this past year, a very good year, but it just wasn't quite Jose Ramirez-esque, I guess. The one that stands out to me is Tatis. I think we got to dive in on this one. Tatis is definitively not in the second tier for me. He's in the third.
Have a couple more. I was going to say, I have a couple more rebuttals for the previous two you mentioned, but yeah, let's go to Fernando Tatis first. I think of this as sort of a wait and see with Fernando Tatis. If you are convinced that his 2023 season is what he is without whatever measure of cheating he did and what he was suspended for, then he's clearly not better than Julio Rodriguez. Clearly. I mean, a 113 WRC plus is not good enough really to overcome not good enough on top of elite defense to top Julio, because Julio plays an elite offensive position. But the thing is, I mean, I just look at 3 straight years when he debuts in any sort of length of a 150 WRC plus or higher at a premium position, and looking like he has some of the most historical power stats in the world, and thinking when he's only 24 years old that even if he stops doing whatever he's doing, I can't imagine that power just goes away. And it's very possible that Fernando Tatis's 2023 season was just the result of him missing over a year's worth of time before returning to Major League Baseball. Like, that's entirely possible, right? That his timing wasn't there, and it would have been much better for him to roll season after season instead of taking an entire year plus off. So I'm banking he returns to what he was pre-suspension, and that player in right field is better than Julio Rodriguez.
Fair points. Argument valid. I respectfully am going to disagree. Point number one, and this is what I'm going to drive home. The fact we are in wait and see mode with Tatis is why I can't put him in tier 2. The fact we're in wait and see with Tatis has dropped him a category below, along with the year he had. If he had gone back to being prime Fernando Tatis, what he was doing before the PEDs and the injuries, he'd be in tier 2. He'd be a top 10 guy for sure. He wasn't that this year. The fact Fernando Tatis Jr. has not been a better player than Julio Rodriguez since Julio stepped into the big leagues says all you need to say. Like, the last time Fernando was better than Julio was not a big leaguer yet, because Tatis missed all of 2022. And in 2023, he comes back and puts up a 770 OPS and a 113 WRC plus. Like, that's not a top 10 baseball player to me. It's just not. I know he was maybe the best outfielder in baseball this year when you look at OAA, and his defense was phenomenal. I know that when he is at his best, he is a top 10 player. But again, what is his best at this point? Does it involve PEDs? Does it not involve PEDs? Since he has come back from allegedly using no more PEDs and cheating, he was 13% above league average as a hitter. Like, I can't put that guy next to a Yordan Alvarez who put up a 180 whatever WRC plus in 22 and a 170 in 23. I just can't do it.
That's a fair point. Yeah, you do make some solid arguments, and I think we will have a clear picture of this direct argument next season, after next season. Yeah. I think it'll be pretty clear, because either some of this also hinges on like Julio truly breaking out offensively, and I mean not just being a really good offensive player. I mean becoming a great offensive player, which many think he is, but he hasn't quite reached that yet. It's a little unfair to expect someone to reach their peak offensively in their first 2 seasons, but Fernando Tatis, again, is a guy who did that. I don't know how any shortstop really caliber player could be any better offensively than Fernando Tatis was. at his peak.
When he's at his peak, he is the face of baseball, as people called him, for sure. It's been 2 years since we've seen that. So yes, I think 2024 is very, very is going to be very telling for who Tatis is. If he goes back to being prime Tatis, great. We can come back to this podcast in a few months and say old takes exposed at you, Lyle. That's fine. But right now, I'd say we don't know.
Are there any other guys in this list that you would like? Which other one is like your firm that not firm, but like leaning Julio over?
Do we want to give that away yet, or should we save it till the end?
Oh, well, yeah, we do. I was going to say, like, I was going to sort of back up for J-Ram. J-Ram I did have a down season, but, like, you go back and you look at his Fangraphs page, and you're like, yeah, that dude's actually pretty damn good.
Oh, he's amazing. I was going to say, if you want to present cases for J-Ram and Trey Turner here, because they're in your tier 2, go ahead. I just didn't have them there.
Well, my Trey Turner thing, I mean, Julio's never been worth 6 wins, and Trey Turner's previous 2 seasons were over 6 wins. Both. I mean, that's just like a flat war argument. Trey's also getting a little older too.
Yeah. You're very, very nitpicking here with that because, Julio put up 5.9 in 23. So he barely missed 6, if you want to call it that.
Well, Trey was like half a win better at minimum. So, like, I mean, that's just what it is. And again, war is very subjective. It's also cumulative as well. So Julio missing time with injury doesn't help him, especially back in 22 in his rookie year when he missed some time with that hand injury. So again, it's all subjective, right? These rankings are interesting. That's why I'm very excited for us to get to the final part of this where we actually have our ranking, where I know you and I are a little bit different on where we put it.